All right, this meeting will now come to order and I will read the EPSB mission statement. The Education Professional Standards Board, in full collaboration and cooperation with its education partners, promotes high levels of student achievement by establishing and enforcing rigorous professional standards for preparation, certification, and responsible and ethical behavior of all professional educators in Kentucky. Serving as board secretary is Sharon Chesser. Ms. Chesser, please call the roll.
Present.
Susan Reber,
Present.
Scotty Collar,
Present.
Elijah Edwards,
Present.
CJ Fryer,
Present.
Kathy Gunn, Priscilla Keller,
Present.
Jacqueline Mayfield, Lori McKean,
Present.
Corinne Murphy, Meredith Pittman,
Present.
Lisa Rosinski, Vice Chair Snell,
Present.
Chair Mitchell.
Present.
We have quorum.
Thank you so much. Commissioner of Education Robbie Fletcher joins us this morning as Executive Secretary to EPSB. I'll now recognize Dr. Fletcher to give his report.
Thank you so much, Chair Mitchell. And before I have a report prepared, but I would like to start by saying I'd like to take the opportunity to thank our Governor Bashir and also our legislators that have been out working with our districts, our school districts, our communities after the flooding from this weekend. There's so many stories that I'm hearing about, and there's so many stories that we don't hear about that's going on throughout all of the Commonwealth. Schools, I've talked to several superintendents who have schools that have water has gotten into their schools. Some districts are not going to be able to be back into their schools for 2 weeks. With actually one district I talked to, they have a road that's completely removed. They don't even have access to one of their schools. And that's just two of many stories that are going on, but also our students that may not have power. There's several without power throughout the Commonwealth, and we're just mindful of that at this time. Thankful for all of our school employees that are checking on students. Also thankful to our first responders that are out there, that were out in a moment's notice helping, saving people. But then in Kentucky, the group that you have to also recognize are the neighbors. They step forward, may actually be the first responders and helping each other out. So if we could start with just like a moment of reflection before we start my update, I would really appreciate it, just in thoughts of all those that have lost loved ones during this time, but also too that are just trying to get back to normal in these few days. Thank you so much. And again, for those that may be watching or that may hear this a little later on, thank you for all you do to help our students, especially in these tough times, not just on a daily basis with the education, but meeting their physical needs. So thank you so much for that. Now, with that being said, I will move into our update. I'm thankful to say that we are in the middle, or actually towards the end of our town halls, and they've been phenomenal. We've had 8 of 9 town halls to talk about the new accountability system. What we're reporting on is the assessment and accountability system 2.0, and 2.0 has a nice focus on local accountability as a major part. As a matter of fact, you can find some great ideas from, for example, in Jefferson County, their journey to success and their profile of learner work, Shelby County, Greenup County, Woodford County, Shelby. We also have had Christian County and so many other districts to present their local accountability models and what they're working on as far as their profile of a learner. And I'll have a video here in just a second that just some things that you need to see. That's just so enlightening. But as far as the town halls, we have gone over 2.0 and we've taken in a lot of input out of those 8 town halls. We've got 1 more to go, and we could already tell you there's going to be a 3.0. Some changes in what the model looks like, but also some additions from hearing from the communities of what they feel like is important from the local accountability and federal accountability pieces. Now, I won't go through the in-depth, but essentially you have a federal accountability piece where we're streamlining to meet the federal requirements, and then you have a local accountability piece as part of this assessment accountability model, with the local accountability pushing towards vibrant learning, giving students those opportunities for capstone projects, project-based learning, work-based learning, defenses of learning, just all those ideas that are relevant for students. So very excited about our town halls as we've been going through. And if we have one more left at Ashland, I believe it with KEDC is our last one. So again, exciting times. Next slide, please. So as we talk about the accountability system, the accountability system is really built on three big ideas. The very first one is a vibrant learning experience. And in a nutshell, if you could define vibrant learning, it's learning that is relevant to the student. To give you a couple of examples, we have a student in Christian County who works for a drone company, and they have to call him out of class very often, the companies do, to get his input on drones. It's part of his work-based learning experience. These companies have no idea they're talking to a 17-year-old, but yet it's one of our students in Christian County that is part of his work-based learning is working for a drone company where companies are calling him for advice. We have a student in Shelby County that has a third grader that has already written 2 books that are on Amazon and published. So, and there's just so many ideas out there. When you talk about vibrant learning, it's what's relevant to the student. It takes the foundations of reading, mathematics, takes it to a whole nother level. When you look at our communication skills, collaboration skills, and again, following those profile of a learner type qualities that we're looking for, but also to encouraging innovation. We have so many districts that are doing some great things when it comes to innovation. Highly recommend you look at some of the districts to see what they're doing, and we're highlighting that as we go through. Then, of course, we want to create a bold new future through collaboration with communities. This type of learning cannot be accomplished without powerful, meaningful collaboration with our business leaders, with our parents, and with each other, with districts. And one of my favorite slides in the town halls was from Woodford County. They had a slide of all the logos of all the districts that helped them develop their local accountability model. You had Woodford, Clark, Shelby, Rowan, Johnson, and Logan. All were working together. And if you put that on a map, those pins are all over the Commonwealth and working together to build that local accountability model. So if I could, just for a few minutes, I know this is going to take a little bit of time, but when you think about local accountability and the possibilities, these are 2 things that how do you turn this into an accountability model to give opportunities for our kids?
I have a big announcement for the families in Greenup County.
We are so excited to announce
the Greenup County School of Innovation is our way of going all in on the things we believe in the most: relationships, creativity, and students having a voice. We believe it because we see it.
over the past few years, we've been doing things differently. We started asking teachers what they could do to get kids hands-on and excited. And man, they delivered.
Magical moments started happening. Students became excited for school when they were able to apply their knowledge to the real world, thanks to classes like
STEM classes, where students are designing and bringing their ideas to life.
A small business class where students learn to make everything from t-shirts to coffee mugs. Think Shauna Logan and Blue Halo. These kids are on their way.
We've brought back shop class, and we've gone from making simple picture frames to building entire houses. We're the only school in the country to build every wall for an entire house. So far, we've done 5 Habitat for Humanity homes, helping local families in need.
Welcome to agriculture class, where our students grow fresh produce that we donate to Meals on Wheels.
And fresh eggs we use for cooking class.
We love what's happening. Students are happier, so we're doubling down.
We'll be the home for students in preschool through 8th grade who get to be hands-on and creative every day.
With little kids on one wing of the school and bigger kids on another, we are so excited to create an environment where students get to be a part of a family where everyone knows each other by name, with these awesome opportunities available to kids at a younger age.
We're making a great thing even better.
and we're excited to open our doors to students and families who want this experience too. The Greenup County School of Innovation, coming August 2025.
We believe in innovation.
And we believe in GC.
Preparing students for adult life in an ever-evolving economy is driving districts across Kentucky to rethink the skills that students should gain in their school years. The resulting graduate profiles often involve districts seeking increased input from educators, community members, employers, and students themselves. Mike Hesketh, owner of an industrial powder coating company in Shelby County, said local employers began realizing that important skills were missing in the local workforce starting about a decade ago.
Consultant come to our CEO group and say, if supply chain was the biggest problem of your business, you couldn't get raw material, as CEO, would you get involved in that? And to a person, we all said, sure. And they said, well, what's the biggest problem that your business faces? And the answer was workforce. And so his question was, so how involved are you? And the answer for all of us at the time was not really at all.
As Kess said, this was a natural partnership since as a business leader, he had already been invited to work on the portrait of a learner and strategic planning for the schools.
We can. We've started project-based learning. This year we had about 10 classrooms across the community that partnered with a bank, German American Bank, and they did their project was teaching the kids how to budget for meals. And they took them to the grocery store. They had to plan a meal. They went to the store. They had to buy the stuff. They went through all that. Then they kind of expanded it to more of a personal finance lesson of what it takes to live like that. And the kids had to do a project with that, come into the bank with parents and everybody and make a presentation. And then the bank took them on a tour and explained how the bank works, showed them the vault, all that kind of stuff. And so it was a chance to get kids excited about school. And that's really where we've landed, is we're trying to get kids to be more motivated by having a good positive experience in school, because we're seeing where we've implemented the Portrait of a Learner in other communities like Bullitt County and others. Grades go up, attendance goes up, behavior issues go down. Kids are going to school not bored or not just trying to get out. They're going interested and excited to be there.
These collaborative efforts are not just improving student outcomes, but also community ties. Shelby County is setting a precedent for how education and industry can work together to build a more prepared and engaged future workforce.
Building a strong workforce starts in the classroom.
So I wanted to share those two videos with you. We also shared these videos in our Kentucky Board of Education meeting. And again, I think it's just a good opportunity to share good news across the state. Next slide, please. This Seek Roadshow, we've divided out and went to different our co-ops to invite superintendents, legislators, other people within a district to say, this is what the Seek formula looks like. If you have this change in population, this is how it impacts your overall per student allotment. This is how it impacts, and then it gave all these districts the opportunity to ask us questions that may be specific to a region, but also we've had legislators to show up and say, this is how Seek works. So this was an idea that really started with superintendents over a year ago, even before I decided to apply for commissioner, to say, can we be better educated on what exactly Seek looks like and how can we help? And honestly, I've been at this for 29 years, and every time I dive into the Seek formula, I learn something new. And I'm a math teacher, so just so that you know, it's a very complex formula, but there's so many moving parts that can impact anything from transportation to property value to number of special education students, and now in so much of our state, the EOL population. How does that all impact the Seek formula? So again, we've been doing a Seek Roadshow. I want to thank Che Ritter and also Matt Ross and OFO, the Office of Finance and Operations, for doing these regional Seek trainings as we go through. Next slide, please. We've started out with some educator recruitment retention campaign. We've had our chronic absenteeism, and until recently, the chronic absenteeism was doing very well, as a matter of fact, making a big impact. But there's some ideas here that as far as the Go Teach Kentucky with the Go Inspire, Go Lead, Go Teach, and if we'll go to the next slide, please. The goals have essentially, there's 4 campaign goals. The very first one is to elevate the profession. We want to change the perceptions of teaching by showcasing success stories and the impact of Kentucky educators. I think we need to do a better job of telling our story. We allow sometimes the negative things to really pull the oxygen out of the room. So for every one bad story, if you will, there are thousands of excellent stories of how teachers are making such a difference in people's lives. So we want to change those perceptions, but also increase awareness. We want to highlight the impacts and the benefits and impacts of the teaching profession through a marketing strategy. We've had a focus here at the department of trying to hire people with some marketing backgrounds as we work through to be able to tell our story better, to market us, if you will. When I say us, I'm talking about the teaching profession. We want to recruit high quality candidates as always. Target potential educators include high school and college students, career changers, and paraeducators. Learning so much. We have, for example, in Nelson County, the teacher apprenticeship program that they have. We want to see that expand. We want to see that grow. We're having some great conversations with legislators. We won't get into a lot of details about that, but how can we get more teachers into the profession with less debt, if you will? Hopefully zero debt. But anyway, working on those type of things too, but enhance retention efforts, foster a sense of value and belonging among current educators through various recognition marketing strategies. And I want to thank Dr. Brewer and the team here at OELE for working on Go Teach Kentucky and those campaign goals. So that being said, that's my update. Be happy. I apologize it went a little long, but I thought those 2 videos are just too great to pass up. Any questions for me before we move on to the next part?
Funding. There's a cut. I read about a cut or saw a cut.
There was a seat shortfall, and after working with the Office of State Budget Director and with the governor, the governor has granted our request to cover the $14.7 million of the seat shortfall. That impacts every district. So with the exception, I think, with a few hold harmless districts, but that seat shortfall portion of $14.7 million is filled. Now there is another 26 million or so that is, if funds are available, that is still there. The governor, and I agree with the governor, he didn't have the authority to impact that area. Our lawyers and his lawyers, we agree that, the 14.7 million was what was within his purview. But there's still that other part and again, in statute, it's if funds are available. So, I've sent all superintendents a list of how each district that would be impacted with that funding too. So many districts that deals with growth a lot of times are large growth districts and also some clawbacks. I mean, a lot of our districts are not impacted at all, but for some districts, this would be a bigger impact than the statutorily required portion. So that's still out there. We were talking with legislators about how we can hopefully move some things around the budget with that. So that's where we are with that. Other questions?
Not a question, Dr. Fletcher, but I'll just add to your praise of Go Teach Kentucky that I was talking to Justin Edwards and Camille Overstreet and their team at the Ed Rising state level, and we got our state conference coming up on Wednesday, March 5th. The official numbers look like to be over 800 students, and last year they had set the record of the biggest conference around 700. So it's great to see that growing as a statewide initiative as well.
Thank you so much, and we're very excited about the growth in our Educators Rising program. So much.
One comment. I went to the Seek Roadshow in Lexington last week, and there were so many good questions, and I think it really, really helped the people at the district level to understand how to better utilize the data, how to keep the data, and to maximize their funding. It was very well received, and it was packed. We had to move rooms because it was so packed, and they moved us to a bigger room.
And we've actually offered this to legislators, and we've had some legislators to show and ask great questions in some of the road shows. So thank you for that. I appreciate it so much. Others? If not, I've probably taken much more time than I should have, and I apologize for that. But I will turn it over to Ms. Susan Reber to give the report from the cabinet, please.
I just have a quick update from ELC, Education and Labor Cabinet. All the cabinets, including Education and Labor, are continuing to monitor any changes on the Fed side to see what is coming down in contracts or grants or whatnot. It's just an ongoing situation to see how that turns out. Also, we had some good news with Everybody Counts. They have been working with the National Governors Association and the Harvard Project on Workforce, and they will be highlighted as a best practice by NGA and the Harvard team. The only other update is we continue, and we may see more of this, to have some issues with Office of Unemployment Insurance. They have staffed up a bit, but they don't have the funding to staff up to where they need to be. So they've been having discussions with legislators. Secretary Link presented in front of committee last week, and it's an ongoing discussion, but it's something that's desperately needed. And I say this as the former chief of staff of the Education and Labor Cabinet. During the pandemic, nobody wants this to be an issue again. It was horrible for people. It was horrible for staff. It was horrible for legislators. I'm hoping that gets worked out. That's it for me.
Thank you so much. With the Council of Post-Secondary Education, Dr. Mandelis.
Good morning, everyone. Just a few updates. First of all, on February 4th, we had an exciting launch to futurity.org. If you have not looked at it, I hope you do. We've had about 5,000 log in and continue to see those grow. On the 4th, we were in the Capitol Rotunda with Dr. Fletcher, Dr. Thompson, and Lieutenant Governor Coleman to kick off the Commonwealth Education Continuum, one of their ideas from 2021. And this is a platform that is free for everyone. It is not just for students, middle and high school, but it is also for adults who may want to upskill, return to school, or earn a credential or degree towards a career goal. This also has specific information for veterans and folks moving to Kentucky. So it's a very broad approach to what Kentucky offers. We are really proud of it because we didn't create any of it. All we did was elevate the incredible resources we are provided in our state, that if you don't know about it, it's not a resource, that's an opportunity. So we have workforce development pieces in there. We have the career centers that are connected. It really is a career and an education focused platform that is user friendly, always growing and improving. So we are already working on the 2.0 version. As Dr. Fletcher was talking about, the 2.0 for accountability, it never stops. It's just continuous improvement. But we have been really pleased with the marketing and the phone calls and requests we are getting. Please share it with your districts and your colleagues. It is something that we are also working in partnership, of course, with KDE, our co-ops, to align resources with the ILP and the use of futurity. So really to meet folks where they are on things you have to do because it's the right thing to do for students, and giving you resources that are not cost prohibited, nor is it more for your plate, but it is to help aid in career exploration and opportunities and scholarships and real career aspirations on where you live in Kentucky and what's available. The data, I would especially encourage you to look at Future Finder. It is based on all careers, over 700 careers in Kentucky, all of our public and private institutions in the state, and some proprietary schools. It will share with you time to completion, scholarship opportunities. If you have not seen the aid that our schools offer, it is incredible. It's a lot more than you would anticipate, and things are doable. And so even if there are students who are middle school and early high school, they can even look at your high school to see what career pathways are offered. And so it is all based on KY Stats data, KDE data, and CPE. So it is very Kentucky centric, and we're excited about the opportunities. So that's the big push. We're really excited about the partnerships and the opportunities for potential students across the state. Also, we did host our Student Success Summit. It was our 14th annual summit. It was supposed to have been held February 10th and 11th. It was only the 10th. The weather was not our friend, but we exceeded capacity. We were hoping for 400. We had 500 registered and had to have a wait list. We had excellent speakers really talking about transformative leadership in higher ed, how we meet students where they are, their basic needs, improving transferability from 2-year to 4-year, or credit for prior learning, to really embrace potential students and really encourage and have some innovative ideas and discussions. It was a great turnout. We hated to end it early. We were able to recognize a lot of our post-secondary partnerships in ways that they have been great partners in the communities, as well as with business partners and innovative ideas. So that was a lot of fun to do, great turnout. And then we have just seen great improvement for undergraduate enrollment. We're slow but steady. It's not where we want it to be, but we're seeing progress in Kentucky. We're second in the nation on enrollment, coming out of those COVID slumps. And that is due to the incredible work of everyone, all hands on deck, of really going after potential students and recruitment, the aid that our General Assembly provides. Like there are lots and lots of opportunities in Kentucky, and so we want to see that continue to grow. So I'll stop there, but if you have any questions or if you're interested in posters, our students from the advisory council, the Commissioners Advisory Council, told us to print posters with QR codes. So we did that. They said, don't put it on social media. All the older people look at that, but we don't. So we're taking their wise advice, and actually we have handed out probably 400 of those already. So if you are interested, let me know. I'll get them to you to put in your school. That is, and we did send one, thanks to Jen Ginn and the team. They sent a poster to each one of the students to put in their schools because it was their idea. And so if you're wondering where the development of that came from, I will tell you that I did not mention is there were 1,200 people we got in front of, either virtually or one-on-one focus groups from middle school all the way through adults, incarcerated adults, DJJ, military, to say what's missing and what can we do for you. And so you will see a lot of that information is truly based off the people of Kentucky and what they are saying, I wish I would have had, or I wish I would have known. So I invite you to do the same. I'm a former middle school teacher and principal, so you cannot hurt my feelings. And send us any ideas for improvement or ways that we can come to your district or talk to folks. Would love to do that. So I'll give it back to you, Commissioner.
Thank you so much. And again, the constructive criticism that came from the Student Advisory Council was so helpful. They did a great job. But also, too, I want to say one more time, thank you, Dr. Ellis, Dr. Thompson, also Lieutenant Governor Coleman, for the work on this. This has been a great partnership with our CEC, our Commonwealth Education Continuum, and to put this forward for students. But the star of the show at the Rotunda,
every time, was
the student. That Miss DeSantis from Frankfort Independent walked us through what it looked like for a student to, this is what my pathway looks like. These are my career options. This is the how much I can make is this or this, and this is how much it's going to cost me to go through. I mean, it's a really great piece of work, but it's all Kentucky-based information.
Yes,
so again, thank you so much for that partnership, and I'm proud to be a part of that. Next, we have from the Office of Educator Licensure and Effectiveness, Dr. Brewer.
Good morning. Cassie, if we could pull up the slides. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Well, to say that we are excited about this campaign is an understatement. So I will try not to go on and on about the enthusiasm that exists behind this work. But I do want to provide a few additional updates about the campaign. So as Dr. Fletcher mentioned, we are going with the slogan, Go Inspire, Go Lead, Go Teach. And so that will be found on all of our promotional materials, as well as the other campaign elements. So if we can go to the next slide. So we do have our existing social media marketing that we have had since the launch of Go Teach. If you don't already follow us on your preferred social media platform, please do. Although I am interested to hear about the posters. So maybe we're moving to a more analog. So pretty soon it's going to be radio only. No. But for now, do follow us on social media and share as you feel appropriate, because we do want to expand our reach from that effort. We're also going to be meeting with Spectrum to hopefully put out some TV commercials here in the next few months, which was also something that we used as part of the chronic absenteeism campaign. And we did get some good feedback from having those TV spots. Of course, we always count on our ambassadors to help be the advocates in the field. So we'll continue to support our ambassadors and hopefully expand opportunities for them to get in front of potential teachers and advocate for the profession. Our team is also planning regional visits where they will have some promotional materials to distribute, and we'll have a member of our certification team on site to answer questions of people on how they can pursue their certificate. One update that I can provide that we have sort of fully prepared is our plan for billboards. If we can go to the next slide. So we are going to have billboards across the state, and keeping with that Go theme, we're going to take pictures of real Kentucky teachers in their real classrooms, and those are going to be based on sort of the regional distribution of the billboards. So we will be highlighting teachers in the areas where the billboards are located. And they're going to have kind of an additional go phrase that fits with their particular teaching interest or their, something that highlights their work. And so, for example, we have Go Unlock Potential, and then our slogan there. We're going to direct people to the Go Teach website, which I do have an update on that. That is also very exciting. We can go to the next slide. We just have a couple other examples for you. So we have Go Fuel Imaginations, and then next slide, Cassie. Go Spark Curiosity. So hopefully it will become such a catchy slogan that people will remember the website. They will realize that being a teacher gives them opportunities to inspire and lead, and hopefully we can help secure additional teachers into the workforce. So next slide, Cassie. So you can see here in the map, this is where we have worked with Lamar to secure billboards, ranging from 6 weeks to 12 weeks, depending on availability and cost. So you'll see we have a good geographic distribution of the billboards. We do intend to work with our ambassadors in those areas to get those photos and potentially the videos for the commercial. So we are excited to get those up and running. Next slide. So we are working on an updated website. We are scheduled to launch the new website in early April. Very needed, and I know I shared with you last time, we have heard that it is hard to navigate the various websites that we have. So we are consolidating all of the information to goteachky.com. And all of the resources that we have that are currently located on the EPSB website, on the KDE website, on Go Teach will be in one location and will fit within these 4 buckets. So we're going to help people to realize that if they are looking for something, it will be on the Go Teach website. So we are excited about that conversion to this new space. Extra special thanks to the team in the Office of Education Technology who is helping to design the website for us to make sure that it has all of the different elements that we have requested. And of course, appreciation to the OELE team who have gone through the process of updating all of those materials. All right, last slide, Cassie. So a couple other updates from our office. The certification structure work group has officially launched. We had our first meeting and we had great attendance and great conversation. The next meeting is scheduled for next week. I do think that they have a very clear mission and I do anticipate some great recommendations coming to you hopefully by the summer. We are entering into a pilot with some of our post-secondary EPPs to review how we do continuing program review. So we want to ensure that we have the information we need to feel confident that we are ensuring program quality, which is an expectation that the EPSB has, but that we're not creating unnecessary work for our EPPs. So we are piloting with a few schools some changes to that process. So more to come on that, likely some amendments to a regulation in the future. As CJ mentioned, we do have our Educators Rising Conference on March 5th at the Kentucky Exposition Center. We did have to change locations because of the increased interest. So that is very exciting. And if you are interested in attending, please do let us know and we'll make sure that we get you registered.
Or judging, because I know they still need, yes.
Thanks, CJ. Yes, if you are available to judge, we would be eternally grateful. So we do have some virtual sessions. So if you're able to next week, log in and judge, that would be wonderful. Or if you want to judge in person, we will certainly make those arrangements. We are currently under contract with ICF to evaluate the literacy efforts in our EPPs. We have a meeting on Friday with the deans and chairs to give them an update on that evaluation process. And then finally, I did want to give you an update. I know Cassie shared with you. I apologize I couldn't be in attendance. I was en route to the NASDAQ conference, shared with you the ABRs that we brought forward to the Kentucky Board of Education. Wanted to just make sure that you were aware that those were well received, and they are certainly supportive of our asks and understand the need to focus on our educator workforce. Two quick celebrations. Our office is now the primary support for the Kentucky Teacher of the Year program. So excited that Jennifer Montgomery, our Teacher of the Year, is currently in California, getting her program orientation as part of the K-TOY program, or the Teacher of the Year program with CCSSO. So it's great professional development for her. She learns about what other Teachers of the Year are doing in their states, and will come back with lots of inspiration for her sabbatical. So we're excited that she has that opportunity. And then finally, I want to extend appreciation to the Kentucky National Board Network and our National Board teachers who were able to attend the ceremony that we had a couple weeks ago. It was a wonderful event, very celebratory. We were very appreciative of Governor Beshear, Lieutenant Governor Coleman, who stopped by to congratulate our new National Board certified teachers. And it was just a great day of celebration for the efforts. We all know how much goes into pursuing that certification. So we always want to celebrate those who have accomplished that. So it was a great day, and we always love to promote that opportunity for teachers. So that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions. Great, thank you.
First of all, I'd also like to thank Dr. Brewer. She brought a plan to us about the marketing with Go Teach Kentucky, and I'd like to thank OFO for the work that they did. There was no funding, no additional funding for this, but they looked at the budget for KDE and moved some funds around to help out. We understand how important this is, but Karen Worth, who is our budget director, and also Matt Ross, who is our associate commissioner, moved around some funds, if you will, that within our budget to help out with this campaign. So I do want to thank the partnership that Meredith has built with, has always had with OFO, but to make these things happen. So thank you for bringing that forward with your team. And also thank you to the team in OFO for helping out. So we're very proud of that. Thank you so much. And now we have a legislative update. It's Cassie Trueblood.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Brian Perry is probably paddling his way over to the Capitol right now. So he's not able to be with you today. He does hope to join us at the March 10th meeting to provide a quick update about where we are in the session at that point. But do want to thank him for getting us started on these slides today, which are not showing. We will try this again. There we go. So today we are on day 13 of the 30-day session. We are almost to the halfway point, which is very good since we have over 750 bills that are already floating around out there, almost 600 in the House alone. Today is the last day for the Senate to file new bills, and then tomorrow is the last day for the House to file new bills. So that will at least give us the number of bills that we're going to have out there. We have seen quite a few shell bills already. So those are those bills that have very little in them at the moment. We do see a number of those on education as well. When you pull those up, it'll say an act relating to education and then list a statute and say adding gender neutral language. So we do tend to keep an eye on those because those have the possibility of changing as well. But I've also linked on there for you the legislative calendar. We will be completely done with the session by midnight on March 28th. Before that, though, we do have the 2 days concurrence before we enter the veto period, and then they will come back for those last 2 legislative days. There were some committee changes this year. In the past, we've always seen the House Education Committee and the Senate Education Committee. This year in the House, they split education into 2. One of those is meeting at the moment. That is the House Post-Secondary Education Committee, which is led by Chair Tipton and Vice Chair Baker. Chair Tipton did lead the House Education Committee last year as well. We are very grateful that seems to have moved to an 8:30 start time instead of an 8 o'clock start time, so that those of us that are watching are able to do so a little easier. And then on Wednesday morning, also now at 8:30, we have the House Primary and Secondary Education Committee, which is led by Representative Scott Lewis, and then also Vice Chair Representative Mike Kleins. I will provide you with a link to this PowerPoint following the meeting. You can have all of the links in here, but how to follow along. We do have the committee schedules. As I said, post-secondary meets on Tuesday morning, and then House Primary and Secondary Wednesday morning, and then Thursday morning at 10 o'clock, we see the Senate Education Committee. And you can follow along on KET or on the LRC YouTube channel if you don't have the ability to come to Frankfurt. Since I know that everybody does want to get out of here at some point today and not get snowed in here at Sauer, we're not going to go through every single bill that is filed, but I do want to highlight some for you, starting with our Senate bills. Senate Bill 77, this was filed by Senator Deneen and is specifically an act relating to the Education Professional Standards Board. This bill was before Senate Education on Thursday, where it received a committee substitute. And it does update the membership of the board. And this is specific to your independent college and university representative, where currently it says in the statute that it shall be the chief academic officer. As we've seen since the departure of Donna Hedgepath, we have had trouble filling that position and keeping some consistency there. So under the committee substitute, this would change that to the leader of the educator preparation program at an independent college or university, which will better align with our public representatives who are the deans of the educator preparation program. That bill, in addition to being passed out of Senate Education, has had 2 readings on the Senate floor and is posted for passage in the orders of the day. Next, we have Senate Bill 120, which is an act relating to interscholastic athletics. KHSAA was with the sponsor at Senate Ed last week as they discussed this. And this really deals with the duty to report dependency, abuse, and neglect under KRS 620030. It does not make any changes to that duty to report, but it does raise awareness on all forms for KHSAA. It's going to include information about that, so that will be made available to student athletes and their parents, and then also additional training for coaches, which often we do see coaches are certified educators as well, and it will have additional training for them on their duty to report to make them aware of that. Coaches are uniquely positioned with that additional access to students to be able to recognize. So we want to make sure that they are able to report that, know the responsibility under the law, and can assist our student athletes. Senate Bill 181 was filed on Friday, and this is filed by Senator Tishner and is an act relating to school employee and volunteer misconduct. Senator Tishner has had interest in filing legislation to stop educator misconduct, especially in the grooming area. We did see some additions that she filed to Representative Tipton's last session bill on educator misconduct that was specific to grooming. What this bill aims to stop is that inappropriate communication through social media, through texting, through a form of communication that is not approved by districts. So it does place requirements on districts to select those traceable communications that are to be used by their employees, creates violations if there's communication happening outside of that, extends the period of time for which the EPSB is able to investigate those allegations in that area. So this is a brand new bill, and we will continue to monitor that and keep you updated on how that proceeds. Moving over to the House, as I mentioned, Representative Tipton's bill, we do have House Bill 36, an act relating to misconduct in schools and school-sponsored activities. We have seen this the past 3 sessions. Last year, this bill did pass out of both chambers, but did not make it out of concurrence. This one is really targeted at prohibiting those non-disclosure agreements when there's allegations of misconduct, specifically abusive conduct. And so it does place those prohibitions on districts entering into that, requires additional checks from our district, is not requiring additional background checks on our public school districts at this point, but does require them to do reference checks where they are checking with previous districts and requesting information from the EPSB when there's been a disclosure of allegations of abusive conduct. It would also require the EPSB to have a training that is developed and is submitted every, I believe, 5 years on inappropriate and appropriate student-teacher boundaries. House Bill 48 is an act relating to education, and this bill has a lot going on in it. It covers a lot of different aspects. It has already been approved by the House Primary and Secondary Education. However, it has been recommitted to the committee and is on the agenda for tomorrow morning. So we are likely to see another amendment to that. The portions of the bill that I want to highlight for this board, though, are around the mentoring and induction program. In statute that was created last year, KRS 161031, where it does require districts to offer an induction and mentoring program for their first year teachers. The board was tasked with developing guidelines for that. But an issue did arise once this went into statute with the funding. And because it was now state mandated, our districts were unable to use their Title II funds that they had previously used. So what this bill does is it makes it optional for districts to provide that, but then it also updates the reporting requirements because the EPSB with OELE staff is required to develop a report every year for the General Assembly on this mentoring and induction program. And this would now require that the board identify all districts that do not have a mentoring and induction program that complies with the standards of the EPSB. So that would actually require us to hire some new staff members in OELE and to have them be able to evaluate every district mentoring and induction program. Next, we have House Bill 170, which is an act relating to Option 9. And this is brought forward by Representative Thomas, who was the creator of Option 9. But what this does is one of the pieces of Option 9 is that these candidates, while they are completing the program, they shall maintain classified employment. Substitute teaching is not classified employment, that is certified employment. However, because the statute specifies classified, they do need to make this amendment to also allow substitute teaching to meet the requirements of Option 9. Next, we have House Bill 251, an act relating to evaluation of educator preparation programs. And this is brought forward by Representative Emily Callaway. Dr. Brewer did join Representative Callaway at the House Post-Secondary Education Committee, where this bill did pass out favorably. It has also had 2 readings on the House floor and is posted for passage. But what this does is kind of realign some requirements that were put into statute with the early literacy and numeracy work. It does state that the Council for Post-Secondary Education, in cooperation with EPSB, shall do some reports and those evaluations. And it now switches that around to have the EPSB in collaboration with the Council for Post-Secondary Education. Also changes the reporting requirements from every year to every 3 years. House Bill 263, an act relating to teacher scholarships. This bill started out with only the student teacher stipend program and making some changes to that. This also went before House Education and did pass favorably out of there. What this would do is allow the stipends to go directly to the student teachers. There was some testimony from Kia about some of the issues with that disbursement through the university and its designation as financial aid. It also would allow those student teachers that are Kentucky residents but are completing their student teaching out of the state to qualify for the stipend. And then it also made an additional change in a committee substitute that would update the teacher scholarship to remove the expected family contribution. House Bill 272 is an act relating to reading and writing in schools. This is another one that we have seen over the years with different sponsors where it deals with dysgraphia and dyslexia. Specifically with the dyslexia requirement that is in statute. It's been in statute since 2018 for our educator preparation programs to include that in their preparation program, but it states currently in statute that that is contingent upon available funding, and this would remove that to make it mandatory. This was also before House Education and reported favorably. House Bill 528 is another repeat bill that we saw last year, an act relating to reading and language arts instruction. And this is specific to the 3 queuing instruction and prohibiting that for our K-12 schools and also for our educator preparation programs, and task the EPSB with regulations setting forth curriculum for our educator preparation programs. This bill did not see much movement last year and has just been filed, so we will see how far it makes it this year. And then these 2 House bills both deal with certification assessments. We did see both of these last year as well. The first does have Democrat sponsors. This is House Bill 205, an act relating to teachers, and it would completely remove the requirements or the ability to set certification assessments. The second bill, which is led by Representative Banta, this also removes the requirement for the EPSB to set certification assessments. However, it would allow districts to establish certification assessments for certified positions, set cut scores for that. When it is going through and removing the requirements for the EPSB to set these assessments, it also is removing that requirement from the alternative routes, which has some unintended consequences to it, because currently for like option 1 and option 5, you can either meet that through a major in the area or passing the academic content assessment. If you remove that from those routes, then you can only have the major, and so that would limit some of our availability in that. So we are continuing to monitor that as well. So that was a lot of bills for you. And I do want to remind our members, we have a few members that are up for confirmation this time. The confirmation process does happen through Senate resolutions. They love to wait until the very last minute to file those, and we don't normally see those voted on until March 28th. So if don't worry if you haven't seen that yet. We will continue to monitor that and let you know once those have been filed. Are there any questions? I think last year we got 9 o'clock. We were really excited. So. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. As far as any closing comments, I apologize. I do have a series of meetings in the annex today, so I apologize for that. All good meetings, I hope. Hopefully with some good positive results. But I'm going to ask Dr. Burr if she'll come and sit in my place. But I'll answer any questions that you may have for me before I leave. Thank you so much for your service. We appreciate it sincerely.
Thank you. All right. This time, Open Speak. Ms. Chester, has anyone signed up for Open Speak? No. All right, moving along. It is now time for our annual EPSB chair and vice chair election. While I have enjoyed my time as chair, I have just completed my third one-year term, which is the statutory maximum for consecutive terms as chair. Among other responsibilities, the chair conducts board meetings and shall encourage full participation in decision-making. I will now open the floor to nominations for the office of Chair of the Education Professional Standards Board.
Steph said nothing. I didn't talk to her about it ahead of time, but hey, Amber. As long as Chip comes with it.
All right.
Second that nomination.
Okay. All right. Great. I'm going to make sure I follow this. Are there any other nominations before I close? All right. Hearing none, the nominations are now closed. Is there a motion to approve the slate and elect Amber Snell as vice chair of EPSB? I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. I was chair.
Do you want to?
Nope, don't want to stay. No, it was just Vice Chair Snell. I was in my mind. I'm so sorry. I will rephrase that. Is there a motion to approve the slate and elect Amber Snell as chair of EPSB? Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Is there a second?
Second.
Captain Rosinski, thank you. The motion before the board is for Amber Snell to serve as chair. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Please join me in congratulating Amber Snell as our chair. All right, at this time, the vice chair of EPSB is responsible for carrying out the duties of chair in his or her absence and to assist the chair as necessary. Today, the board will also need to elect a vice chair. Is there a nomination for vice chair?
I would like to propose CJ Fryer as a consideration for vice chair.
Any other nominations?
I mean, I will throw out there that I would be honored, but not even a but. I would be honored, period. Thank you. I don't know if there's a consideration. Amber and I have chatted a bit. Amber's a little new to the role. She's going to do a great job. I would be new to the role too. Happy to do it. Would be honored to do it. I don't even know if I want to make a formal nomination, but Chair Mitchell, who just came out chair, could pivot back to vice chair. Again, I'll leave it up to the board to make a decision on a nomination there or not, but I'm just throwing public conversation out there. But thank you, and I would accept, but also we can talk about the logistics of what's best for the board.
Sure.
Standpoint. That was very convoluted, sorry.
You can say no. It's okay. I told you, CJ,
I'm not saying no. I want to
I
make sure that the
understand.
board feels good
understand.
on what is best for us moving forward.
I think there's a lot of learning to happen in a lot of different ways. And I love you, Justin, as a human. And I would so be saying, yes, go back to Justin. But at the same time, I also love you as a human. So I have no doubt that you will give lots of guidance and support to Amber and to CJ as I don't know, that's just what I'm saying. You know, if we're looking at continuing and learning and growing our leadership longevity, that's something to consider. But I wasn't part of your conversation, so.
So at this time, I have CJ Fryer as a nomination for vice chair. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, the nominations are closed. Is there a motion to approve the slate and elect CJ Fryer as vice chair of EPSB?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you,
Second.
Captain Rosinski, and the second by Chair Snell. The motion before the board is for CJ Fryer to serve as vice chair of EPSB. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And the motion passes. Let's congratulate CJ at our vice chair. And at this time, I will now turn the meeting over to our new chair.
My first order of business is to thank Justin Mitchell for his service as chair.
Mr. Mitchell was appointed to the EPSB in 2018 as a teacher member and has remained a dedicated member through multiple reorganizations of the board and a worldwide pandemic. He served as EPSB vice chair before moving into the chair position in 2022. At this time, I would like to present Mr. Mitchell with a small token of our appreciation to commemorate his time as chair. Please join me in thanking Justin Mitchell. We will now move to consent items. Items A through K are listed on the agenda as consent items. I will give the members a moment to review the list. Does anyone wish to remove any of the items from the consent agenda for further discussion?
I just want to point out that in the agenda book, on consent A, under roll call for our previous minutes, it did have the wrong date of December 2nd, 2024, but Ms. Trueblood has already changed that in the updated minutes. So we won't have to pull that off of consent as long as it's changed.
And I had noticed in I and K, I think one of them had the extra, like, school librarian, I think was correct, but the learning and disabilities from EKU had both programs listed in that consent item. I don't know if that needs to be updated or not, but.
Page, which one are you talking about?
Let me find it.
So are you talking about J? It does have both programs. That's what's being presented is the two programs. It's under.
But it lists as school librarian, I thought.
The school librarian is a separate program.
Right.
And then the other two are.
I thought that they were double listed. Yeah, so in J, this third page, it lists at the header, the school librarian form again. Page 3 and 4.
That's that notes. You're in the actual.
Yeah, the consent item J.
On the consent.
Yes, sorry.
On the agenda.
It was in the consent item J folder. The first page says MAT LBD program, and the second page says MAT LBD program. But then the third page for consent item J has the school librarian.
About the document library.
Yes.
And the separate. Okay,
Yeah.
that is just the additional material.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
Not the.
Okay.
Not the agenda or the stack.
Oh, the header's wrong.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those were all submitted by the same institution, and so the documents were all together there. But then they are separated out.
Okay.
Based upon the programs for the staff notes.
Those were for us to review. We're not approving necessarily those documents. Okay.
I'll ask again. Does anyone wish to remove any of the items from the consent agenda for further discussion? Having received no requests to remove items from the consent agenda, can I have a motion to approve consent items A through K?
I make a motion to approve consent items A through K.
Thank you, Captain Rosinski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Ellis. The motion before the board is to approve consent items A through K. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passes. Today we have 4 information items. These items are presented to the board for review and discussion only. Information item A is presented by Todd Davis.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Chair. In December, the board heard a presentation and had several questions related to the Praxis Bridge program that ETS offers for an alternative route to passing some Praxis exams. Today, ETS is here again as well to provide more clarity around some of the questions that the board had, like related to the qualifications and the number of attempts on the Praxis, the modules that are associated, as well as how many modules can be completed through the Praxis Bridge in one assessment. And those were several questions that the board had. And so Ms. Lisa Hedrick is here again with ETS to provide some clarity. We also learned some information from the pilot states that participated in that program, which were Kansas, Connecticut, and West Virginia. And so she will share some information related to that as well. So I'll turn the floor over to Ms. Hedrick.
Thank you. Thank you, Pleasure Commissioner. Oh, do I need to turn it on? Are we good? Always hate to hear my voice. Again, thank you, Associate Commissioner Dr. Brewer, new chair, Sneed, and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to return to provide some additional information around this alternative option for passing currently the elementary education multiple subjects test, which we're calling Praxis Bridge. I always just like to put it out there as a reminder too, that I am the Director for Educational Partnerships for Kentucky, and I am available to anyone who needs any assistance, information, or support across the state. So I always put that out there to make sure that everybody is aware of that. So I just wanted to go over quickly, and Todd mentioned this, but I'm just going to, if you could forward the slide. Just again, I want to talk quickly about the program objectives and kind of how we came up with the Praxis Bridge. I will give you a quick update as to what it actually is. You do have the handout in your board packet, and then talk just very briefly about some of the data that we got from the 3 pilot states that was November through February. Quickly, then I'll show you some projected numbers around Kentucky and the Kentucky context, and then obviously questions can be asked at any time, but I just put that always at the end to make sure that we definitely don't forget that. So I like to, if you could advance the slide, thanks. I like to always, for people who aren't aware of what ETS is, to briefly just discuss who we are. We are a nonprofit company. We were formed back in 1947. Can't believe it's been, almost 80 years. It was a combination of companies at that time, American Council on Ed, Carnegie Foundation, and the College Board. And what we were doing was just ensuring that there was another option for more of the middle class to be able to be accepted into and have opportunities to get into college. Again, very different time in the 40s. So we also continue to partner with key research associations and think tanks across the U.S. Around advancing the science of measurement, with the goal of always providing new and more information of how to measure knowledge, skills, and abilities. As was discussed earlier in our Commissioner Fletcher's report, he was discussing the portrait or profile of a graduate, and we actually are part of the work with Carnegie and North Carolina and a couple other states around actually putting that work into some sort of a transcript and how those skills would be measured, so that employers could actually see those types of skills. So those are the types of things that we do at ETS. We do have what we call the ETS Research Institute that undergirds all those things, and that's actually too how Praxis Bridge came to be. So Connecticut actually reached out to ETS a little over a year ago and wanted to have a conversation about what could we assist them with in addressing some of the teacher pipeline issues and candidates who are just almost to the recommended passing score for a state. what might we be able to do to help them develop something that could be used that's psychometrically sound. And so, and you can also go ahead and update the next slide. So Praxis Bridge is actually what came out of that collaboration with Connecticut. It is an accelerated path to certification. It's in place so that a candidate does not have to take the full Praxis test over again. It provides more of a formative professional learning module, and we'll talk a little bit more about how those are identified because I know you all are very interested in that. It also is a data-driven approach. So we are able on the back end psychometrically through different statistical models to actually identify the content knowledge of the candidate taking the assessment, where they are in need of most assistance to actually push them over the passing score. Next slide. So again, as we discussed the last time, the state has a recommended cut score. Every state, most of them are very similar now due to how we do the multi-state standard setting, but every state can set their cut score. You all currently have a recommended cut score as the -1. The Praxis Bridge option also is a -1 process. So on the back end, we have candidates who take a test. And you can go ahead and go to the next slide. I think the visual helps me a little bit here. So you can either take the test and you pass it. And in that case, you move on and you go through the certification process and are into the teacher pipe out of the teacher pipeline and into the more mentoring and support phase. If you are within -1 standard error measure from the state's cut score, then you are routed into this pathway where you will be provided a learning module based upon your specific score and where you fell within the content categories. Again, if you are more than -1 standard error measure from the state's cut score, you are not routed into this process. You will have to take the full assessment again. Next. So the routing model, for example, is, and you can read through these, it is based on both a criterion-based approach, as well as a norm-based approach. So there are thresholds that we identify for each content category within an assessment. And because I'm a social studies teacher, I'm going to use social studies. So in the elementary education social studies test, you have 3 content categories. Each of them have different numbers of items. Each are weighted differently. So for example, U.S. history, government, and citizenship on that assessment is 45% of the test and has 27 questions. The second content category for elementary social studies is geography, anthropology, and sociology. That is 30% of the assessment with 18 questions. And then the third content category is world history and economics. That is 25% of the assessment and has 15 questions. So what we're actually doing when the test taker takes the assessment is, first and foremost, we are looking at the content category that is weighted the most. So let's, for example, number 1, the first category, U.S. history, government, and citizenship, 45% of the assessment. Those questions are going to be more important in regard to ranking whether or not a candidate has sufficient knowledge to pass this assessment. So then basically what happens is we rank order, and then if they meet the threshold, let's say in 2 and 3, the second and third category, then those obviously become not part of the routing process. Then they would be routed to, let's say they struggled a little bit more in U.S. history, and that would be the module that they take. Next slide. So here are the professional modules as they exist currently. As I said before, we are always updating and changing as we learn more. But currently for elementary education, the assessment that Kentucky does use, these would be the modules. So if a candidate is at the -1 standard error of measure, and they just need to answer a few more questions in order to be able to get over that hump to be considered alternatively passed. That is notated on the school report, and there's things we do behind the scenes that will actually integrate with your systems. They are routed then to one of these modules. Go to the next slide, just to quickly go over what they contain. So the actual content then will show samples that are designed as a tutorial. So it's not just reading. There are videos. You can also hover over certain context words that you may not understand, which a lot of times that is why a candidate struggles a bit with passing or with answering a question correctly, because they're not quite sure of the terminology. So there is a way to quickly hover over, and it will explain those types of things. And again, it's designed as an overview. It's not exhaustive of the whole content category, but it is aligned, as you see in the second column, to those particular higher frequency standards that are in part of that domain. So that's really where we're going to focus that professional learning at, is those things that are listed and more frequent in the standards around that content category. Again, it does include feedback, and there are hints, and this is in the practice session. But then when you go to the knowledge check, it includes the items that are in the highest frequency part of the standards and part of the content domain. There are no hints in that particular knowledge check, and there are no supports during that. And so to move out of the professional learning module, at first attempt, you have to have a 75 to 80% to demonstrate mastery. After that, you are rerouted back into the system and are provided additional opportunities to brush up and determine what it is you actually need to know and where you're struggling. You have 6 months to actually complete that process. It's $50 one time for 6 months. You can, once you pass, you are then exited. You get a score report whenever kind of the state actually runs their reports. Every state's a little bit different, and it will show you are alternatively passed, and then the state does the things that they do on their end in regard to certification and licensure. So for the pilot results, and we'll go quickly to the next slide. So these are aggregated among Kansas, Connecticut, and West Virginia. And these data are from November 1st, which was the beginning of the pilot, to January 1 of 2025. You can see that the number of tests taken were 1,143. 143 qualified for bridge, 56 registered for bridge, and 48 have successfully completed as of January 1. So then you can look there and you can see number of tests taken, and then it disaggregates them by ELA, math, social studies, and science. You can see the number that passed via the cut score, and those that did not pass. And then it's interesting, you can also see that the of those that did not pass that were eligible for bridge, so there were 143 total, and only 56 registered. And then there are still some as of January that were still in the system working to complete it. So I believe if you look at those numbers, that kind of tells you a little bit of a story. It's not a significant number of people who qualify for the -1, again, because they really are almost over to the passing side. Next slide. Just to let you know a little bit about what students said, over 84% of the participants did agree that the data-driven approach did enhance their concept mastery. Over 95% of the respondents did agree that the practice questions effectively prepared them for success. But what did they most value? They most valued the focused learning on specific knowledge gaps so that they didn't have to take the entire assessment again. Someone helped them really hone in on what it is that they struggled with. Of course, I think it because of the format, it does reduce test anxiety. It's self-paced, and then they were also given detailed feedback for incorrect answers. So as part of the pilot feedback, when we did a webinar, we had the state clients that were part of the pilot participate and talk to other states in regard to some of the questions that they had. And so some of the states and the EPPs that were part of the process did like that it was, and you can advance the slide, they did like that it was a cost-effective option with more of a professional learning type of focus so that they didn't have to retake the entire test. It was faster in regard to having to wait for the ability for when the next testing window might be or an available seat might be open in order to take the entire test. It created a different format. So some of the states had heard from their EPPs that the students really liked the fact that it was a different format for them to show proficiency in a more targeted content mastery area. And then it provided other options. So some of our states are looking for additional options in regard to determining if someone passes. So this was just another way for them to do that and do it from a more psychometric position. And then finally, EPPs and the state clients did like that it was another data point to be used for exploring performance at the content category level. So those are just some of the specifics. Next slide. These are the states that have currently adopted the bridge: Connecticut, Kansas, and West Virginia, obviously, since they had bought into the process. We have some Western states, Nevada and Utah, that have also adopted. And then we have other states similar to the Commonwealth here that are looking at the option, considering it in their own context based on their own state and the parameters in their state. And then some are waiting, which I'll show you on the next to the last slide, are waiting for the test that they actually use. Some states don't use this elementary ed assessment, so they're not adopting it yet. And that is another thing that I can mention. You can adopt it based on the assessment. So if there's a specific assessment that you're more interested in using this option for, you don't have to adopt it for everything. And then again, I did want to mention all of the states above have their passing score currently is the recommended study value. So they do not have they have not gone to the -1 standard error measure. They have adopted the standard setting recommendation. Next to the last slide before I show you a little bit of Kentucky data and then ask for questions. So we are again adding this option over time over the next year. Core reading, writing, and math will be available on April the 6th. And then you can see teaching reading. That's actually should be in the summer of 2025. That's not going to be ready in April at April 6th. So teaching reading, PLT, ELA, special ed, and then you can see some of the other titles that are coming in the fall that are tests that are used in in Kentucky. So next slide. That gives you then a brief overview. I know maybe a little bit not brief, but an overview of the information I did want to share about the pilot because I think those are important numbers to see. And I'm hoping that you can see this, but if you look at, because I can't see it, these are just some numbers for Kentucky based on data that we pulled from the ETS data manager. And it gives you some numbers for either Praxis Core. I went ahead and included that because that is coming down the pike. And then the elementary ed test. So let me just walk you through. The first two columns are 2021, 2022. Thank you. That column there would be the total number of Kentucky test takers. The second column then would be the number if we were to go back 3 years, that would be the number of candidates that would have qualified per whatever subtest that was. Then there's the 2022-23 column, and then the 324. And then if you move it, if you can move that over just a little so that you can see the actual 3-year aggregate. If you were looking at Praxis Core, there were 2,658 candidates that took Praxis Core over those 3 years. 183 would qualify for this particular assessment. And this is at what you've currently adopted. And so that's about 7%. And then you can see for the 4 teacher subtests for elementary ed, you can see those are all in the 3,000s. They're pretty consistent in regard to each subtest. And those are coming out in around 6%, 4, 7, and 8%. And social studies and science, I think because of the breadth of the material, those are the ones that we see people have to take over the most for multiple reasons. But that is my presentation. And so I'm happy to take questions, try to explain as much as I can in regard to the routing process. I've talked extensively with the psychometrician. So their terminology, I have to try to put it in my terminology. So I'm hoping I can do that justice. Questions?
I don't have a question, but I just have a comment. Thank you for the data, because I think anytime we're looking at adjusting our expectations for assessments or anything like that, you know, making sure that we still have highly qualified people in the field, right? And so that data just allows us to see that there's a small percentage that we're missing, right? That maybe we need a different assessment. Maybe we need, you know, some accommodation for them, that they're going to be great teachers. So I very much appreciate the data to support that. So thank you.
I do have a question. So I know that you tried to address this, but I just want to make sure that we're being very explicit here. So currently, the states that have been participating in the pilot, the students that would have qualified were at that -1 SEM, which currently Kentucky has the option, if you're within that score, that you receive a passing score from. So this would what you proposed be that we would be at -2 SEM for Kentucky, or what would it look like if it was implemented here for students, since we already have that?
Okay, so so that's an excellent question. It's not fully, we're at a -2, but how I try to explain it is in regard to, and I had this on here, but I just, for time's sake, I didn't want to go into it all. But during that multi-state standard setting process, the outcome is a report that has 5 scores. It has the recommended study value, the -1 standard error measure, which you have currently as your recommended cut score. It has the -2. Back in the day, when I first went to the State Department in West Virginia, +1 and +2 also are on that report from the recommended study value, and many states adopted those because we were in a different time. So I say that to say, then that's the standard setting. Every state, we used to actually go into a score setting then in every state. So then you could decide, is -1, do you want that to be your recommended score? So basically what I'm told from our research and psychometricians is that it's legally defensible within that range from -2 to +2 to have and set a cut score. It just depends upon how you as a state want to do it. It's also common for states to look at it every year and say, maybe we don't want the -1 now because of what our data shows. So I hope that answers your question. It is, they tell me it is not a -2 technically. And I guess what we should do too is actually bring some data that actually has all of it together.
That would be helpful. So I think what I think misunderstanding. So currently, with the way that the approval of those, including those scores, you wouldn't have a flag as alternatively passed if you were within that -1 SEM in Kentucky. You passed.
You passed.
It sounds like what's being proposed with Bridge, those students would potentially, so it's still at that -1 SEM, at least that's in the pilot states. they're trying to get them to that original cut score. And so then that support gets them to kind of that
The recommended
cut
current
score,
ones.
but then flags them as alternatively passed.
So yes, so currently the Kansas, West Virginia, and Connecticut at the recommended cut score, their -1 or would be what your current recommended cut score is.
Right. So I think what complicates things is that we continue to maintain a cut score, but then the -1 SEM is really kind of the truly implemented cut score. So I think we're getting the language a little conflated. So is what you're proposing for Kentucky's Praxis Bridge would be below the -1 SEM, they would have access to the bridge to get to -1 as passing?
That would be, well, and what we say is Kentucky's recommended cut score. We don't call it a -1. So when we do the adoption paperwork, or when we talk to any states, it's just your recommended cut score. If you adopt -2, then that becomes Kentucky's recommended cut score. And then if you were at -2 and you adopted bridge, obviously the -1 is still going to be further down the scale. We wouldn't recommend going past -2. Like I said, it's legally defensible between the -1 and the +2.
I just think that's an important consideration for the board because they've already provided flexibilities for those students in the currently approved process.
And I also appreciate that it's not a -2, but it is negative.
Yeah, I know.
There's some semantics going on. Because we've done already what we need to do to capture those in that -5. And this is functionally different. And so, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, I don't know what the number would be for even us to consider, because I don't know if that's even worth considering. Because you're not meeting -1. And even if we help you, that's what you're gonna get to is -1. I don't know.
Right, that's true. And if you had the recommended cut score from the states, from the multi-state standard setting, and then you adopted the -1, you are having them do something in regard to get over the hump. Currently at what you're doing, you are at -1 and it's passing. So it is a difference because Kansas and West Virginia are at the recommended, and the -1 actually brings them into this professional learning module to actually provide them additional support on those 3 or 4 questions that if they would have gotten right, whatever that concept was that they were struggling with, it provides an avenue for them to do that with some data.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's likened to me just curving a test for students and or reteaching, reevaluating, and then retesting or providing an alternate assessment for them to prove their mastery after they've done some sort of learning, right?
Yes, and
so currently we're just curving the test. And this provides an opportunity to reteach those specific targeted needs to help them prove their mastery.
Yes, and that is an example that I had in my notes that just I didn't go there because of time. But yes, it is more of a formative. Okay, here are the candidates that did not meet. They almost met, let's say my standard for teaching was I wanted everybody to have an 85%. So who are the ones that had maybe a 75%? How can I, not that I'm excluding anyone that's lower than that, but as in this context, yes. Where do they struggle? What can I do to provide them support so that they can go back and think about it, what it was that they were not able or they didn't understand? And it may have been something very small that they didn't even understand a word or they missed the word due to just time. And then providing a formative option for them to then come back and show mastery. So thank you.
So I just have a couple quick notes. So first of all, thank you again. You definitely came back with questions that we had and some information, so that's very helpful. I remember Justin and I looking at each other as we were processing it the last meeting, and I think when we first as a board approved the -1 SEM, like had the bridge existed then, I think we would have been all in on doing the -1 SEM with the bridge program. So now it's almost like that I know this thing exists, and it's like I almost want to go back and say, actually, now we're going back to the original scores. But when you're within -1 SEM, because I don't like the distinction of being the first state that is doing both the negative. I mean, because you have that list, and it's great to see other states are doing this. And to be clear, I know that sometimes the praxis or that assessment piece is the difference of a person getting certification, right? And if we got passionate people, right, and we got people who we know will make a difference in the classroom, I love the idea of what the bridge program is. I think I'm hesitant with just the double whammy there, but it feels like now we're going to be taking a step back the other way when it feels like okay. So there's all that. So thank you. I think that gives us stuff to think about. My big note as we move on, I guess, would be one, just some important stakeholder groups like our college or EPPs, like how are they processing this? Not to sound dumb and not to put you on the spot, Mr. Trueblood, but I know you mentioned, of course, 2 House bills that are looming. I couldn't help but listen to this whole conversation and think all this might be for naught in a little bit here. But what, and I know you mentioned some bipartisan support on some of these bills that have been filed. So like, what's their angle coming from? Are they worried about that teacher who can't certify with an assessment? So does this maybe piece of information make them more inclined to keep an assessment? I get very nervous about having no assessment out there that's certifying our teachers. So I just think we got some important stakeholder groups to kind of loop in this conversation before we make any big changes. And that would be kind of my note about looping everyone in on everything. And if you don't, I'm not asking you to speak, of course, for our representatives.
I have a handheld mic here, so we'll see how I do with that. Thanks, Beth. But with this, praxis has been, and certification assessments in general have been under attack. We have seen that. We've seen concerns about that. Last year, we did see both of these bills. They did not move. Now, there were discussions on the second bill that I mentioned that would give the ability to the districts during the interim. There seems to, potentially be some support behind that going forward. We are continuing to monitor that and we'll let you know. I do think, though, we are and have been able to point to the actions that this board has taken to provide flexibilities, such as you have adopted the -1 SEM. You did pilot the PPAT. You also had made some adjustments to admissions assessments for those going into our programs. So I do think that from the outside, our legislators are able to see the steps that you are taking to address that. And then also one of the ABRs that Dr. Brewer presented that was also shared with you all is around praxis support, which does provide that additional mentoring and support. So we're not removing a standard, we're trying to help people have the means to meet those standards. So very long-winded way of saying, we'll see.
And just to add that, we also engage with, I offer to the EPPs anytime for conversations, and we do have conversations with other stakeholders in Kentucky, and always sharing the things that you are doing in regard to flexibility. So always trying to advocate really for multiple measures. As an educator, that's what I'm focused on.
You had mentioned that, several states reevaluate every year. I don't know that I know how often we evaluate those things. Do we have a timeline where we evaluate?
And every state's different. Not everyone does it, but it is something that some states do. And a lot of times it's statutory.
So, yours has been on a kind of rolling basis here. The -1 SEM has been an annual discussion for 3 years now. And then also the changes in tests, for example, Dr. Diebel has brought that work forward around the literacy and numeracy piece. And then when we have additional tests that have been recommended when ETS is making changes to tests, when they're sunsetting some, Sharon Salzman has brought that information. So you do see it. We don't have a set schedule, but it has been seen on a pretty consistent basis.
And I'll just say, I think it's the issue of praxis, I don't think, is holding people out of the profession as much as we want to think it is. I think we need to have some kind of test that's there. We go back 15 years ago, like, I don't think we were hearing as much talk about the praxis test as a barrier from people getting into the profession, because there were more people going into the profession. I think the root cause of people not going into the profession of education is not because of the praxis test. And so I understand that there are some issues out there, and I get we could get a handful more people there, which I know is always great and required. But I at the end of the day, I don't think this is really preventing that many people from getting into the teaching profession. So I would just say, for any legislators out there, I think it's really important. All other professions at this level have some kind of certification, some kind of standard to say that I've achieved this knowledge, I know this. And so I think it is important, and we are continuing to work on that. Yeah.
So I'll bring back data, or I won't bring back, I'll pull it and give it to the KDE, and they'll have it. So thank you.
I'll just add real quick, in the mission of elevating the profession, if I had a nurse that had not taken the NCLEX, I would be concerned, and we respect the nursing profession. So I think that needs to be reminded about our teaching profession as well.
Thank you for joining us today, Ms. Hendricks. I'm going to quickly ask, are there any other questions from the board? No? Okay. Next, we have information item B, presented by Meredith Brewer.
So today we wanted to have a discussion about the goals that the board established and how we plan to achieve those goals in support with our Office of Educator Licensure and Effectiveness. We are here to serve the board, and we want to be sure that we are working toward those goals. So Cassie is going to walk you through the goals. I will provide updates that are currently underway and the efforts that we already have identified, and would love to hear from the members about other things that you want to see prioritized.
So this staff note is going to start on page 59 of your agenda book. And then in there, we have included the pretty goals that were adopted by the board in December. And then there is a working document on page 61 that has each of your 4 goals with the little blurb that we had under each goal kind of divided out into action steps. So that first goal is that every certified educator exemplifies behaviors that maintain the dignity and integrity of the profession by adhering to established law, including the Code of Ethics. So underneath that, we kind of broke that section down into number 1, that we will promote awareness of the standards for ethical behaviors for educators. Our staff does do that. They do different trainings upon when they're asked by our educator preparation programs as well as districts. That legal staff will present all cases to the EPSB for review in a timely manner. I am very happy to say, and this is also a great shout out to our legal staff, but also to the board for your willingness to meet and see us every few weeks, that since the implementation of House Bill 300, we have not had any cases dismissed for failure to meet timelines. So that is a big accomplishment there. And then also that legal staff will provide accurate and reliable data to support decision making. Nora is in the back of the room with us too. If you all have any additional comments or things that we want to add under this bullet or this goal. So then our next one does get to certification. And here we have every certified position in a Kentucky public school is staffed by a properly credentialed educator. Very laudable goal there. But under this, we have that you shall undertake a continuous review of the certification structure to ensure that it aligns with the Kentucky academic standards and workforce needs to best serve the students of the Commonwealth, monitor the validity and reliability of certification assessments, and maintain a focus on continuous improvement for all certification procedures and processes.
So we will call on Todd to give sort of an update on the certification structure work group. As I mentioned in my report, our first meeting went well. We'll meet again next week. Hopefully we'll have similar attendance. But Todd, anything you want to share about kind of your vision for that group?
Yeah, sure. So the first meeting, as Dr. Brewer said, I thought went fairly well. Just provided a great deal of information. A lot was related to the structure that I provided in the meeting last fall to move forward with this project, and also provided a lot of state data from other states, just so we could see structures from other states, but then also posing some questions around what the barriers are. So what barriers do we see? And I think one of the key findings that we need to determine is this a certification structure issue, or is this a permissions issue associated with credentials? And so looking at that, comparing to other states, looking specifically at our border states, and also keeping our interstate compact in mind as well. So there's several questions we've got to answer. And one, we've got to determine some root causes, but then also figure out what our best options are, rather than just going rogue and maybe doing a blanket, one or two blanket maybe certifications, but then also provide flexibility. So it's very challenging, but a good group. And so look forward to this next meeting. It's next Thursday afternoon, and we'll have some specific questions that we're moving towards answering that day.
I also want to praise our amazing certification team. They continue to do an outstanding job processing certificates in a timely fashion. I was recently asked about the time for a processing of a certificate, and they implied 6 months, and we said no, 1 day turnaround. And so that's something that we should really celebrate. Obviously, KEX has hugely improved the process, much more streamlined having that system in place. We continue to tweak that system to make it more user friendly, and our team is always available to provide phone support and other means to make sure that our candidates are able to certify with little administrative drag. So I think we continue to keep that top of mind, that we don't want administrative barriers to be what's preventing people from pursuing their certificate.
Any additional discussion with this item? And you will see some of your next information items on this agenda do also get to this goal. So that is one thing we can do as well with your future agendas, is kind of highlight where those information and action items fall as far as your goals, to help you see that and visualize that as we move forward. But next, we have every approved educator preparation program meets or exceeds all accreditation standards and prepares knowledgeable, capable teachers and administrators who demonstrate effectiveness in helping all students reach educational achievement. And here we've broken down that into emphasizing vibrant hands-on clinical experiences, paid student teaching, innovation and collaboration with P12 partners, and maintain a focus on continuous improvement of all preparation programs through regular and rigorous review of program quality.
Okay, so as I mentioned in my report, we are looking to pilot our program review process. So Dr. Diebel and her team is leading that effort. So as I said, we do want to make sure that we are not creating additional burdensome requirements on our EPPs, but we want to have the data that we can appropriately indicate that that program review process was successfully completed. It also helps to think about that accreditation process as kind of a full experience, and that program review is a critical part of that process on the road to accreditation. So we know that having a process that is intentional to help support our EPPs and successfully reaching that renewal of their accreditation is something that we want to prioritize. Obviously, we continue to work with the other KDE teams on the United We Learn efforts to ensure that our teachers are entering into the classroom ready to provide those vibrant learning experiences that Dr. Fletcher mentioned. And we know that that sort of transformation of what school looks like is something that we have to be responsive to. It is a new world, and we want to be sure our teachers are prepared to enter into it.
Any further discussion around goal 3? That does move us to goal 4, which was a big one, one that you all have discussed quite a bit. Communication with stakeholders, education partners, and the public is clear and promotes entry to and growth within the profession. Number 1, maintain a clear public-facing website to communicate the work of the EPSB, and then also provide clear and consistent guidance on the options for obtaining initial certification, adding an area of certification, and pursuing rank change.
So obviously, we all agree that we needed a refreshed website. So that is something that we have certainly prioritized in OELE, and we're all very excited about the plans, as I shared. Happy to talk about any recommendations you have about the content that should be included on the website, resources that you currently utilize, or any of those who are in attendance today that you want to be sure are easily accessible. But certainly, we are making good movement toward achieving this goal. Additionally, as I said, we want to be sure that the certification expectations are clear. And so on the website, we intend to have very detailed directions on what it looks like to apply for your initial certificate, to add on additional endorsements or certification areas. And so we're going to try to make the process as straightforward as possible. I'll go teach KY on all social media. Continue to promote.
I guess I would like to say that we shared all the efforts and the growth of the linked website on KDE's page. When you type in EPSB Kentucky, though, it still takes you to this not secure epsb.ky.gov, which is what I would imagine educators, unless we start an information campaign to help communicate through Kentucky Teacher and other things, for them to be able to go to that. It's still taking them to this offsite thing that a lot of websites are still, or what a lot of organizations are still blocking.
That's correct. And I apologize for not being clear. So that is a website that we currently maintain. And so with our partners in OET, the plan when the new website is ready to launch, that website will be closed and it will redirect to Go Teach. So if you were to do a search for Education Professional Standards Board, all that would return is the Go Teach website. And on the KDE website, we'll continue to have the Education Professional Standards Board tab that is at the top of the homepage with the membership information about educator misconduct. That will remain on the KDE website. Everything else will be on goteachky.com. So we will have a celebration when the old EPSB website is officially sunset. So that is the plan, so that we can hopefully optimize any searches and direct people to the accurate information. So absolutely, that is something that has been a concern.
Are there any other comments or things you would like captured in this?
One thing that I will share that I just think, really speaks to the amazing team we have in OET. They are going to also purchase Kentucky Go Teach, just in case someone was to be confused, because a lot of our K groups lead with the Kentucky. So it will redirect to goteachky.com as well. So we will have actually two websites that will be combined, and we can have everyone go to the right place.
One small question, and
yes,
I don't want to split hairs. With the old website sunsetting, is there still value in obtaining / will we still obtain that like domain? Like where like if someone's still typing in the old EPSB website, like it would maybe redirect them?
It's going to, everything will, yes. So
we won't lose that domain.
I don't believe so. I'm not sure. I'm certainly not an IT expert, so I don't know, but yes.
It's like a partly IT question, and then it's also partly like, EPSB as an entity is like an independent, separate, like obviously we are working in conjunction with KD and all these wonderful offices, but I think there's a value in that we've had our own. Yes, when you go to a different website and it's not just completely housed in everything else, it's reminding everyone that we are, right? So I know I'm splitting hairs here and we can talk more about this later, but that's just something maybe to consider. 100% fan of all the, this is way overdue. So, I mean, not like rejecting any of this, but just something to think about in trying to maintain our independence, but also like working as stakeholders and partners together. Yes.
So we can explore that. So currently what we've been trying to move toward is a parallel with the state board. And so you'll notice that on the homepage, the Kentucky State Board, which is also an independent board, has a tab. You have a tab. You have a membership page. They have a membership page. You have your meeting information. So we've been trying to have that be more
And
parallel.
I do love all that.
And so that is, that was what we was sort of, but I appreciate that question. We've just been so focused on deleting the old EPSB website. I hadn't really thought about that.
I don't even know that it's more just like, it would be nice to know that the domain still exists.
Sure.
And could redirect. Like,
I do
even
think
if
we
it's-
own it currently, so I
Yeah.
can check to see
if
what
it's not
costs
like a
there
super
are.
expensive cost,
Sure, sure.
Another going rate of
Well,
difference.
and I think the big thing is, just because I'm not tech either, I'm very programmatic curious, but I think the important part is what is the role of the board, right? So what are the roles and the duties of the board? Because this board has incredible authority, statutory authority over certification and regulatory authority, that I think gets confusing sometimes because we're in the world of higher ed and K-12 and in the world of certification. And so that gets a little wonky sometimes. So I think even just the clarity and the language, with all the efforts in alignment with KDE 100% and with CACTI, that it's a unified message of elevating the field. And then what is the role of EPSB in the elevation of that and certification and expectation? I think that would really be helpful in layman's terms, right? Like, so anybody who wants to look at it, if they don't know the K acronym, then they are not losing out, right? And so they understand how certification works because every state's a little different anyway. And people even get confused with us at CPE because it goes through EPSB first because it's a teacher certification and then the program comes through us. So it's always here first. And so that's confusing because that's not like any other profession outside of the nursing profession. So, yeah, I think just clarity on role, Meredith, maybe that would help CJ on just like what we do and what the board has authority on and responsibilities for. I think it would be really helpful. I think it just gets confusing.
And that was something when I presented the ABRs to the state board, there was a question about how EPSB fits into the department. So I think there is a need for clarity for everyone. So that is something that we intend to bring back to the state board so that they are aware of the roles and responsibilities of EPSB. To Justin's point earlier, having an education professional standards board is part of the full package about, maintaining the professionalism of teaching. And so we, of course, are huge advocates of maintaining the authority of EPSB. So however we can be clear about what those roles and responsibilities are, we will certainly do so.
Also, I like the logo. That was my first time seeing. I don't know if that was just a mock-up, but it's nice.
If anyone wants to, after adjournment, talk about the campaign, it's my favorite topic, and I'm happy to talk about it as long as you'd like.
Thank you. Next, we have information item C presented by Cassie Trueblood.
I'm going to have Todd Davis stay up here as well because these next two are certification regulations. So they do get to that goal on continuously looking at your certification structure. But the first one, information item C, is on page 62. And this is an proposed amendment to 16 KAR 4090, which is your regulation on reissuance requirements. So that is the requirement once a certificate has expired. This was part of your ongoing regulation review where you are required to review those regulations every 7 years. And then you do have to certify those for those to remain in effect. And this particular regulation was certified with the intent to amend on May of last year. So you have to file an amended regulation on or before November 3rd. So bringing this to you in plenty of time. But this one, with this, the actual amendment is on page 64 or starts on page 64. And this is going to remove some outdated language around the reissuance for individuals that had not yet obtained their rank 2. This was in place when it was a requirement for all educators to obtain their rank 2. So it will remove that. Also clarifying in here that this is for teachers because the reissuance requirements for administrators is in 16 KAR 3090. The reissuance requirements for counselors is in 3060. And then also here, this is going to incorporate language around a waiver that you all have approved the last 2 school years, which is somewhat similar to the exception certificate, to allow individuals a one-time exception to that 6 hours of graduate credit if they have a recommendation from an employing district. Are there any questions about the proposal to this? This is only for information item today. So any feedback we will incorporate and bring it back to you at the next in-person meeting for action. You may actually have some more time on your hands before a meeting.
Last, we have information item D.
Okay, information item D does go along with this. That staff note is on page 67. And with this, we have 16 KAR 4080, which is the out-of-state recency requirement. And this one is being recommended for repeal. With this is, as Dr. Murphy was alluding to, one that the waiver committee has seen a number of requests for over the last few years and has been approving those, because this regulation was again created when it was required for everyone to obtain their rank 2. And so when you had those individuals coming from out of state that had not yet obtained their rank 2, it created this recency of preparation requirements that they had to meet, and that also does not align with the Interstate Teacher Mobility Compact that we have seen to ease the requirements for individuals to go across state lines. So under the compact, the board would not be able to place additional requirements on those out-of-state candidates. They can't have additional testing or education requirements. Their license is what is used to transfer from one state to another. With this, the repeal, this is just the first step in this. So if that is the direction that the board chooses to go, we will take this to the Legislative Research Commission, to the Reg Compiler, to ask for a repealer number and then bring it back to you with that for action at the April board meeting. And this is one that where Todd can speak to that if you would like, where he does hear quite a bit from our border districts with some concerns about this and the barriers that it does cause in hiring.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The board is now ready to review waiver request. KRS 1610281N provides that the board has the authority to waive its administrative regulations when the request is submitted by an applicant for certification, a post-secondary institution, or a superintendent of a local school district. When requesting a waiver, the requesting party must submit to the board a written request along with the appropriate justification for the waiver. EPSB staff reviewed the waiver with EPSB's waiver committee during an open meeting immediately prior to this meeting, and the waiver committee formulated recommendations. Sharon Salzman will present the waiver request to the board, and waiver committee member Corinne Murphy will present the committee's recommendation for final action.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This waiver was submitted from Howard Sims, and he is requesting a waiver of the out-of-state recency requirement for issuance of a professional certificate for teaching physical education. He has stated he has been a licensed and employee teacher for 3 years in Arkansas, and states that trying to teach full-time and take master level courses is very stressful for himself and his family. And he has logged 60+ hours each year in professional development. He does have some graduate level credits and will continue to seek other opportunities through professional development to further his knowledge, but he is requesting that the EPSB consider his previous experience from out of state to waive the out of state recency requirement of 6 graduate hours and issue him the full 5-year certificate.
Thank you. I need a motion.
Make a motion to approve waiver A.
Thank you, Captain Rosinski. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. The motion before the board is to approve the waiver. Are there any discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The waiver passes. We have 3 alternative routes to certification applications. These applications are pursuing option 1, exceptional work experience route to certification. This is one of the alternative routes established by the legislature in KRS 161048. An applicant with exceptional work experience must have a bachelor's or a graduate degree meeting minimum GPA requirements and an academic major or passing score on the academic content assessment in the area in which certification is being sought. The board will need to determine if the applicant's work experience constitutes exceptional work experience. The applications are being presented by Sharon Salzman.
All right, this one is for Jefferson Davis, and he is requesting that the EPSB approve his application for certification in the area of physics and engineering, grades 8 through 12. He has over 10 years of experience in engineering and physics, and as an engineer, he was responsible for training consulting engineers on the latest advancements in HVAC and other related engineering fields. He has overseen construction projects, quality assurance, inventory tracking systems, troubleshooting, maintenance computers, electrical and mechanical systems, and he has used computer-aided manufacturing software to generate toolpath information. He has conducted in-depth research and experiments on the physics of rotational turbulent flows with an emphasis on the analysis of skin friction reduction. And he has developed the highly parallel computational fluid dynamics software and the implementation of highly parallel post-processing techniques. He does have a Bachelor of Science degree in mechanical engineering and a graduate certificate in computational fluid dynamics.
At this time, I will need a motion. Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lori. The motion before the board is to approve the alternative route to certification for Mr. Davis. Any discussion? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The application is approved. Next is application B on page 84.
So April Griffey is requesting that the EPSB waive her application for certification in the area of business and marketing and education, grades 8 through 12. She has over 10 years of experience in human resource and business management. She is currently the chief executive officer of a white glove transportation and logistics trucking company. She ensures that the company adheres to all relevant employment laws at the federal, state, and local level. She must confirm that internal documentation is in line with the laws, specifically employee policies, record keeping, internal controls, and compliance audits. She developed the Standard Operating Procedures Guide, which outlines detailed step-by-step instructions for specific processes, policies, and procedures. She collaborates with the company accountant to maintain payroll records, purchases, expenses, and employee benefits. She's responsible for creating legally binding agreements between the buyers and suppliers. She oversees the ordering, storing, using, and selling the company's inventory, and she manages the social media channels, print, and digital advertising for the department. She has a bachelor's and master's degree in business administration and management.
Is there a motion? Thank you, Ms. Reber. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. The motion before the board is to approve the application. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The application is approved. Next is application C.
So this one is from Megan McIntosh, and she's requesting EPSB approve her application for certification in the area of chemistry, grades 8 through 12. She has over 5 years of experience in chemistry. She is currently a postdoctoral researcher with a multifaceted array of responsibilities and roles. She manages and conducts advanced research projects, analyzes data, develops conclusions, prepares detailed reports, writes computer programs to perform quantum chemical calculations, implements new quantum chemical technologies to solve chemical problems, collaborates with international, experimental, and computational teams to accomplish research objectives, integrates research findings into new research. She has published 20 research findings. She is a member of the American Chemical Society and the Kentucky Academy of Sciences, and she has a Doctor of Philosophy degree in chemistry.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the application.
Thank you, Mr. Fryer. Do I have a second? Thank you, Dr. Murphy. The motion before the board is to approve the application. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Application passes. We'll now open the floor to any board member for board comments. Does anyone have anything they wish to share?
I would just like to build on what Commissioner Fletcher said. Eastern Kentucky has been hit incredibly hard in the last weekend. I did just receive a text message. We do finally have access to our school. We do still have several students who are trapped behind water. They can't leave their homes. Most of them have been without electricity for 24 to 48 hours. So as we start to rebuild and there will be lots of efforts to provide for students in Eastern and Southeastern Kentucky. And I just ask that you, if you have any opportunity to give back, that that you take that opportunity. I know my students will appreciate it. My coworkers will appreciate it. When we were hit in 2021, we were very lucky in Knox County. It didn't affect us directly. And we traveled to further Eastern Kentucky and we saw the devastation there. And it's really hard for us to imagine that it's happening there again, but now it's happening at our house as well. So just continue to remember those students who've been affected. And if you get the opportunity, it will be greatly appreciated. Thank you. I know we will start once the water starts to recede and we can get to our students. We will see, but most of them, without power for 48 hours, they've lost their food and they've lost. So it will be a complete. I know our Family Resource Center, we lost all of our frozen food, things that we provide for our kids with our backpack program. So as we kind of start going through and seeing what we have and what we need, I'll get that information out to you all.
I would like to thank Mr. Mitchell for your dedication to the board, stepping up unexpectedly to the role of chair and leading us through continuing to be uncharted waters. I know it's in addition to all of the other responsibilities and things that you do, and you have represented this board with honor and integrity and grace and compassion and zeal. And I, for one, and I probably speak for everyone, are very, very grateful for your service.
I have a board comment that might seem a little delayed. I almost didn't mention it, but I wasn't here in the December meeting to talk about the superintendent of my school, Dr. Snodgrass, who worked for 50 years in education through the Department of Education. He started as an ag teacher, and then he had to take 2 years off because he went and served our country in Vietnam, and then came back, returned to the classroom. At KDE, he was Associate Commissioner, Director of the Division of Research and Evaluation, Director for Education Planning, Director of the Kentucky Student Leadership Training Center. He was eventually Chief Executive Officer of the CKEC. And most recently, he was an Education Policy Coordinator for the Kentucky Legislative Committee. So he served 50 years to the students of Kentucky, including from 1992 to 2006, he was superintendent of Harrodsburg Independent Schools, where I got to know him. He knew every single student in the school district by name. He was proud of that fact. He whenever we studied Vietnam, he would come to the classroom and talk to us about that. He went above and beyond to give so many students so many opportunities. So I just wanted to say on record that is make sure his family knows that we understand his legacy and that it will continue on. So he passed away on October 30th of last year, but he was a great person, and just wanted to honor his legacy for a moment.
Anyone else? Okay, at this time, I believe we are ready to go into closed session pursuant to KRS 61811C and J to conduct a character and fitness review and to review potential actions relating to complaints and reports. The board will also review pending litigation. At this time, I will need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
A second.
you, Ms. Keller. The motion before the board is a motion to go into closed session. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. We are now ready to move into closed session. We will take a 10-minute break. At this time, I will need a motion to go into open session. Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Keller. The motion before the board is a motion to go back into open session. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. We are now back into open session. At this time, we will vote on those items discussed during closed session. For character and fitness, 1 through 4, approve. Number 5, approve with conditions. For substitute character and fitness, 1 through 15, approve. For agreed orders, 1 through 11, accept. For recommended orders, 1 through 3, we accept the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and recommended orders. For the educator cases, number 1 and 2, further investigation. Number 3 and 4, we approve the PRC agreed order. For number 5 through 7, further investigation. For number 8, we approve the PRC agreed order. For number 9 through 13, further investigation. For number 14 and 15, we approve the PRC agreed order. For number 16, further investigation. For number 17 through 19, we approve the PRC agreed order. For number 20, further investigation. For number 21, we approve the PRC agreed order. For number 22 through 26, further investigation. For 27 and 28, dismiss with prejudice. Number 29, further investigation. Number 30 through 31, dismiss with prejudice. 32 through 35, dismiss with prejudice. 36 and 37, initiate hearing.
TJ Fryer, yes to all.
Lisa Rudzinski, yes to all.
Scotty Collier, yes to all.
Priscilla Keller, yes to all.
Amanda Ellis, yes to all. Susan Reaver, yes to all.
Lori McKeon, recuse on educator case 15, and yes to all the others.
Elijah Edwards, yes to all.
Meredith Pittman, yes to all.
Justin Mitchell, yes to all.
Amber Snell, yes to all. At this time, I will need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. I need a second.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. The motion before the board is to adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. We are now adjourned.